Okay, hope you guys are able to hear me here. 4th of June 2020. I just wanted to record some stuff that I'm seeing today. I think it's going to be a good day to evaluate how markets could get a bit more sloppier and choppier at some certain levels, but the levels still mean a lot of that do have a lot of importance. So let's get to the NQ here. This is NASDAQ. Okay, so once again, I spotted out these areas that I've been looking at as reference. So basically, the areas mean something, and then I look to see how I can get the order flow and the footprint on the dome to give me good indications of a reversal or to play which side, which direction. This is the 3rd of June. I had noticed this 96.50 where sellers got shut off. This is a single print that basically failed. This last, I don't know what period that is, but that period, that's an area where I wanted to see, for me, that was the bias of who is still in control. And that area is around, again, 96.50. I basically put a line there. I said to myself, this is an area where bulls want to make sure they still keep control above. Overnight, came into it so many times. I mean, it's normal that we go through it, right? I mean, this is how markets work. Well, we have to give it at least, in NQ, you have to give it at least, I'd say, 4, 8, 10 ticks sometimes. And it's very normal. This is very normal, but we can see that we've never been able to trade below it. We did not get acceptance below it, basically. And same thing here. We come to today. Okay, so for today, market opens here, which means that it's a very balanced market. The open was right in the middle of yesterday's range. So this is tough to trade unless you focus on a level that looks more of a area to buy. So the only area that I would have focused on was this 96.75-ish here, which was the time point of control from yesterday, the TPOC. I generally would put that in. So that was the only thing I wanted to look at with NQ. Honestly, I don't know why, but the last couple of days, I just felt that NQ has been giving me better trade ideas, and the volatility in it is a lot better than the ES. We'll get to the ES in a couple of minutes. So basically, what did I want to do here? I wanted to add a text, right? So here, let's just, I think there's a way to put this here in the text. So this is, once again, Sierra charts that I'm using. So that's 96.75 TPOC from 3rd of June, 2020. I just like to keep these references because most of the time it's a little trick, but NQ loves to come back, retest these areas, and these areas become basically inflection points. The little thing today was that NQ started here, tested that area, and then just flew like unbelievable. Just was kind of like an open test previous TPOC from yesterday, and then flew up. This was the overnight high, just got through it. I mean, I didn't even look at it. Today's TPOC is above here, so it's an interesting day because market spent a lot of time here and the market spent a lot of time here. Could we basically be rotating between this high volume node and this high volume node? That would be something to watch out for. That's why the profile is very important to see and to make sure that, okay, we don't have buyers in control above this, but buyers definitely have been buying here and absorbing all the selling that occurred. And I think this high volume node up to this high volume node could be the range for today. Okay, so that's something to always spot. I mean, once we've had at least 2 or 3 time frames, we've broken at least one side of the overnight. I think the overnight is not that important anymore. I just have it on my charts just to, but I don't really pay attention to the overnight after let's say 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. Give it a couple of hours, and I don't think the overnight becomes all that important. What's important generally is the low volume area. So if we were just to basically look at this, this here has an area that's low volume area. gotta watch. It's probably gonna be an area to conquer for bulls before this volume here, and then get here. I mean, it could basically rotate around these levels for a good while. Um, if you looked at the markets, yeah, enough, you always tend to see these kind of things. So again, volume node here, volume node here. We basically float around it, knowing that 96.50 held from yesterday's level. So that means that buyers want to buy here, and I think we're going to get some tough resistance around these areas. These two M periods from yesterday, this is what kind of told me that we might get some decent volatility if we break above it and below it, and which is exactly what occurred. So if we put this is M period low, M period high. We got through. We did a price probe here, but closed below it. So I wanted to see if we were able to get action in this area, which exactly occurred, right? We had a couple of TPOs, and looks like this M period was kind of rejected. Again, the M period was very important for the morning trade and the overnight, as overnight was kept rejecting there and then kept buying here. It was very definite ranges here in the overnight. If you experience and watch NQ for a couple of years, you basically learn this stuff, and it's definitely important to keep as references. So today the context is what I'm trying to go over, because I believe that context is the most important thing when we're trading. I like to have a good idea of where market could stop, where market could shift, and where I want to kind of have like a bias of who could take control where. Um, the important thing with markets is always basically, like I said, you want to go over context first. So the context is very important, and I believe if you get the context right, you could then start learning what's the most important things. With context, I believe the important thing is to learn day types, okay? And then also go over opening types. Uh, where did the market open, and what is likely to happen with each sort or each kind of open. You know, there are good statistics around this, and one trick is if we open in the same days, previous days um, range, and also a little detail about value where most of yesterday's trade occurred here, and we opened right in the middle of it. It's tough to get a good directional trade when we have these kind of opens, okay? But today wasn't that bad, as we had the open here, got into yesterday's TPOC, and we're not able to trade much below it. And I kind of saw that buyers on the tape were taking control. Okay, so this is one thing that you always want to make sure. Context. Learn day types, opening types, and what is likely to happen with each kind of opening, right? So this was NQ. Let's go see what happened with ES. So ES, again, I'm just putting 3rd of June here and 4th of June here. Same thing. We opened in yesterday's range. The yellow here is the open. That's the open price. And it's tough because same thing. These gray lines are my value areas from yesterday, and we opened right below the value area of yesterday. And we couldn't really get a lot of trade there. I mean, it was a wild open because it went up at the beginning and then shot back down. That's why opening in yesterday's range within value, it's tough to trade those kind of opens. Okay, um, I always wanted to. That's why I didn't really want to look into ES, because I had a bias where it was a bit different compared to the NQ. NQ was a bit easier to trade. The open with ES today, I didn't even look at it honestly. I just saw it go up and then it came back down here. Didn't really pay attention to A period, but I saw that B period was breaking it, and then when I saw A period so volatile in NQ, I said to myself, okay, like what's the next trade, right? It wasn't obvious unless you were really in front of your screen with ES. Where did ES just go? Sorry. So back to the ES here. It was not an obvious trade in the morning, like I said. Once again, always cover that. The second thing I always want to discuss is uh, zones to stock. Learn to create your own zones, basically. Um, I'm going to just write that down because it's going to be helpful in the future. So the first thing was to look at context. Second thing is to stock your own zones, basically. Stock zones. Learn to create your own zones. Um these will basically be TPOC. I'm going to put them down here. TPOC and on NQ. Uh, area where buyers or sellers shut off, and then I always want to see how you call it. Reference areas are good to just have as references, but these zones, honestly, you kind of have to tell yourself is if everyone sees the overnight high and the overnight, sorry, this is overnight here, overnight high and the overnight low, uh, is it a good reference or a good zone for me to stock as a trader? You know what I mean? Jim Dalton calls that mechanical trading, where short-term traders are buying mechanical levels or shorting overnight highs, buying overnight lows. Mechanical trading, it's good to understand the concept, but when you have mechanical trading, um, when do you buy, when do you sell, the execution is going to be very important, right? So stocking the zones, understanding where market could basically turn and inflect. I also call these inflection points. Inflection points could be like uh, an area where you want to see what happens in that area, right? That's something that's almost discretionary. You want to stock zones, but I want to know what happens here at this 3110. That's what exactly what I wanted to know in this deep period. And I was able to get a little trade out of it. I bought, what did I do? I bought how you call it? I bought a couple of ES contracts around that, and I was able to make a little profit out of it. I didn't want to hold it because I knew that once we get into a stock zone like this, we're definitely going to have some volatility. So I'm going to show you guys that trade that I did here. I can just basically show it to you. I just copied it here. This was, you know, $175 gain. I bought it at 11.27. My average price was 0.875, and that was it. I had 12 ticks of leeway. I gave it 12 ticks, so that's 3 points. And if we basically look at the zone there, how the market chopped in around there, you knew that that was an inflection point. So I wanted to show you guys that trade. So that was the area where, the market, again, this is some context that I have on the candle, because or else you only see it with, how you call it, you see it with, you see it with the profile, but like the real action, you absolutely have to come back and look at it on candle charts. Yeah, that's it. So it was around 11 o'clock. So that 310 area, you see, what I said to myself is, this is not, it's not an exact science, but it's a way of kind of giving yourself what would other traders be thinking, right? So I always like to do a projection of the first swing of the day, which was from 9:30 to 10, that high. And then I knew that generally speaking, a lot of Fibonacci levels and all those guys, they like to trade these areas, right? So as you can see, this area is like the ambush zone from any swing high to swing low. And this zone should generally be bought if you want those guys to, buyers to buy the dips, right? And as soon as I saw that that was failing here, the first 38 failed, and then the 50 failed, and then the 68 failed. I said to myself, okay, maybe we've got, again, I kind of see this quickly on my, I have four screens, so I kind of saw this quickly on my screen. I said to myself, okay, we've got a decent sell-off here. I don't know if it was news. I don't really care. We're Thursday, so and maybe it was the jobless claim stuff. I don't know. I don't really watch the news. But knowing that we're not able to get back into this zone, I'm kind of seeing like, okay, it's a seller's market here, and if I'm gonna try buying these dips all the time, it's gonna be tough. As you can see, buyers are not getting it through. They're not getting the job done. And again, after that swing, I don't want sellers to basically keep prices below these areas, which is exactly what's occurring. So you got to be careful when that happens. You can go and back test that. It's a general rule. And once again, markets are live here, and sellers are just cracking, like hitting the bids. It's unbelievable. Really strong deltas here. That 3110 acted as good inflection point again. So that was one thing I was looking at, and it's getting really tough to be a buyer with this kind of momentum, to be honest. And again, I'm being cautious on the buy side, but the first a couple of attempts where you saw that the 3110 now became resistance, so that could be an important detail to keep going forward, because that zone market needs to close above that for me to be a bull's market. And again, look at this, we're really getting decent sell off here. That's a very strong market we've got going here. On the other hand, I have one NQ short, and my entry, if you just look at my dome, was, so it's not NQ, it's micro. So I'm going to manage this before we get into trouble with it. It was 96.77. So you know what? I know that I gave it too much room here, but I'm going to just put a random stop here since we're doing this live. So that's one contract short on micro NASDAQ. And the reason why that worked is because we've had, again, I was looking at that swing high from 930, okay? And I said to myself, that zone, remember that area I was talking about, the 9650, right? The 9650. So that, again, same thing, same concept, 50-60% levels got basically sold off on this one here. And then I just did it to see with this swing low, and that 38, the Fibonacci guys came back in. So this is just a visual way of saying to yourself, okay, sellers are really being dominant here, and I don't want to be very aggressive, right? So if we're able to get, I'm just going to put a stop there and a stop there. If it hits that, it hits that, it's that. I'm being very cautious with the downside again. I want to show you an example, the NQ profile here. If we go back to it, what's going on? You see, this 36, 38 is a decent level that held several times from the past. It was a single print. Okay, so I have these levels already drawn. Single print here, single print here, single print here. The market traded above this several times. So it's a developed area where market likes to spend time in this area, right? So if we look at the dome, I'm just going to put this aside and lift this way. Let's just, now it's 12:35 Eastern, so I'm not sure if it's a good time to maybe look into buying a bit here, but this could definitely be an area where I think 36 to at least 50 would be an area where you want to, basically look at the long side. I am I long? No, I'm not long. Oh, why? I should be long now. Okay, here we are. That's strange. Okay, it doesn't want to buy. Let's give it 2 minutes here. So again, 36, 37, I'm stalking this level again. Okay, we're long one. 9650 is the target, so I'm just going to put one or two targets here if I can get a couple of fills in. I'm seeing buyers coming in. I mean, nothing too aggressive. Oops, what did I do with that? ES has some blocks coming in, you see. So we can reset this here. So again, context levels give you good, you know, areas to aim, shoot for. I'm gonna be cautious here. I've got 4 micro NQs, and I'm seeing nothing. Again, it's 12:36 p.m. Eastern. I'm not gonna have huge momentum on this, but if I can get one or two runners on this MQ here, I'm gonna give it a couple of more. I'm long 6 now, so let's just give it a couple of more contracts just to give us some tight gains. Um, I'm gonna reset the dome. So buyers. All right, so we're good. I have 4 contracts. I'm gonna see if I. Oh, okay. It still wants to come back. What I look to do in this kind of scenario is, again, we spoke about contacts, and now we're stalking as an area, and then the next thing is always risk management, journaling the stats. How effective are you when you're executing trades in these areas, and what kind of setups to look for, right? The setup or the trade idea once comes from the stop from the zone. So I've got the zone here, and then I've got ES telling me that there's decent buying from the lows on ES here. So we're probably going to rotate a bit around here. And that's where, market correlations, ES has got some decent rotations. 96.50, I want to see if buyers could get above 96.50 again, right? That's an area where we're stocking. We're going to see if we could, as again, this is NQ. And, the setups are areas that I want to see buyers take control on the profile. Let me explain. We've got a volume node here. I could see that we have low volume in this area, and we have low volume in this 9647. I want buyers to take control of this low volume node and come back into my areas that I'm playing with, right? So if we're able to get above this high volume area, which is the 44, okay, and it looks like market's spending some time there, so it's not going to be easy getting over it, but once it gets to it, let's see if we can get this to go. Once we get through the 44, all right, this is the 44. Again, you want to give it approximate level. So this 44 is the high volume node. 47s have low volume here. 49s have low volume here. Is the market just basically trying to fill this area? You get it? If the market wants to fill this area, it's basically buy the lows, sell the highs. Buy the lows, sell the highs. You don't want to be, too directional. You just have an area to play with, okay? And if I look at my 15-second chart on the NASDAQ, as I can see, NASDAQ has, again, I didn't mention it, but the NASDAQ has pivoted off the initial balance low. You see that on the profile. So that means that this initial balance, where is the initial balance? Sorry. It basically went up all the way here, right? And that 70 became a pivot where you want to see if this high volume node, if we get back in here, are we going to basically play around this 70 and 60 level? That's how you play these zones. Uh, the volume profile gives you the zones, inflection point here, and we've got a decent area that has low volume, right? I think I mentioned this in the ES. The ES, I have it here somewhere. Where is my ES profile? So look, I'm not even stressed about my position at the moment. You see, you look at this often, and you know that, you have a chance of, okay, ES just broke the initial balance low. So this 3106, are we able to trade above it, right? We've got a low volume node here. This 3106 is acting as resistance. If we can get above that and start maintaining that as support, that's where you want to say, okay, probably we're going to play around that level, right? And as you can see, NQ is doing the same thing. Here we are. This is great trading. I mean, a great example of what I look for. The high volume node needs converted this. Sorry, I can't see. Okay, so it converted the 9640 into a sort of a support, and we're seeing buyers willing to buy at these levels. And I think we're going to get some tough trades if we can convert this 45, 44 area into support. I think we could gradually start moving up, right? So that's the importance of this high volume node. With this high volume node, I personally think the market will basically balance in this area for a while. Okay, now let's just look at the context of why and what it could, why it wants to do that. What did I do? Okay, here we are. That's our profile. Again, is it because that same level, that 9650, market wants to basically create a nice high volume node in this area? You know, sellers were shut off yesterday here. Are we going to just get two-sided trade around this level? Sellers here, buyers here, sellers above, buying below it. This could last for a couple of time frames. So every letter, once again, in the market profile is a 30-minute time frame. And this is the reason why more and more you look at the markets, more and more you see these things happening. And that's where your process comes with experience. You know, you have these several playbooks where you know that the market wants to play around this low volume node, and it's just that 3106 above that. That's where I want to be a buyer. Below it, it could still do some um, price discovery and try to go back into these, you know, overnight lows, because overnight market did test these areas. So if I was a buyer, let's say I wanted to buy this market at the moment, this is ES. So at the moment, it's tough to stock a zone for me. I'll tell you why. First of all, one little detail. The most amount of trade occurred around this 3110. The volume, the VWAP, volume weighted average price. If price is below this, that means we had a lot of trade above these areas, right? So we've got the VWAP and the VPOC, both of them acting as, like, let's say, resistance. That's where you want to know that, okay, it's not a buyer's market. Buyers are being really tested here. Sellers are more aggressive. And I also see this through the footprint, right? I mean, the 30-minute footprint here showed me that here in this area we had decent negative, positive in this one. That's a strange way of looking at it. And you know, the market, just do a rectangle here, the market rejecting area. Look, the highest delta, lowest delta, highest delta, lowest delta, highest delta. This area is getting rejected by the market. Unless we can counter this area back again, the high volume that we had here, it's tough to be a buyer. You know what I mean? It's probably going to be a lot easier being a seller. And this here, the 3105, is showing us here that there's a battle going on here. All right, this is a battle between 3105. We've got the highest delta and the lowest delta. 3105 to 3110 is the easy trade here. Uh, don't look to, you know, play it differently. It's just how the market is telling you, this is where I want to trade, and this is where. And let's